waiting for the recording in progress.
Yeah.
Right.
Recording in progress.
Okay, great. So it is Thursday, May 16th, and let's call this Water Commission meeting to order. Let's start out with a roll call, please.
Chair Cooney, Vice Chair Snyder.
Yes.
Commissioner Keller,
Yes.
Commissioner Davis,
Here.
Commissioner Young, Council Liaison Sniden.
Okay. Great. Moving on. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
Chair Cooney, there are no changes to the agenda.
Fantastic. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Great. Let's move on to consent items. Do we have any comments on the meeting minutes from April 18th? Looks like no comments from the,
Nope. Nope.
great,
I'd move approval of the consent calendar.
great.
I second.
Let's have a vote.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
Commissioner Keller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Snyder,
Yes.
Chair Cooney.
Yes. Great. And so we will move on to the, oh, do we have a public comment before? Oh, you're just ready for the next part. Sorry. I was like, no, I'm hyped. Okay, great, great, great. Let's move on to the administrative items, starting with the automated metering infrastructure and water smart status update.
Chair Cooney,
Sorry.
Commission.
Oh, yeah.
No, I just
perfect.
was going to introduce our speaker here. Jose Acosta is our Water Supply and Services Superintendent, overseeing our metering group and water conservation. And so here today to give you an update on where we are with AMI. Really excited. We've really blown away some of the at least initial numbers that we had hoped for signing people up, and could talk a little bit about where we're hoping this program is going to go in the future. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Costa.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Council Members Sneden. Jose Acosta, Water Services Superintendent here with the City of Santa Barbara. Before I give a background of the AMI project, I think it'd be right to give some due thanks to the people who actually walked this project to where it is today. One of them is no longer here, Teresa Lancy. She was one of the leaders with this project, and so she deserves congratulations and thanks for this. We have Dana, Madeline, Jerry, and Sarah. They all have great experience and have contributed heavily. So have all the other staff within the metering services area, but just want to give them their proper thanks and due diligence for what they've done. So thank you. Some background on the AMI system. Since 2014, the city has undergone implementation of an automated metering infrastructure project. This included installing infrastructure for our RF system, which is through Aclara. The RF system is the mesh network that collects all the data throughout the system. They've also installed the meters and the MTU endpoints, which are meter transmitting units. These meter transmitting units relay the data through DCUs, which are data collection units that are spread out throughout the city as well. This project was started at the beginning of 2023 and was completed ahead of schedule. It was supposed to be completed in October. It actually was completed in July of 2023 for the infrastructure portion. Part of this project was to implement a customer-facing portal which allows customers to see their data, manipulate their water usage, and learn from this data as well to empower them to have better knowledge of what their water usage is and implement better conservation measures. So if I can go ahead and get the first slide, please. Today we're going to discuss some key metrics of the AMI project. We're going to discuss some staffing impacts. How does this impact the staffs? Because now we're no longer manually reading meters, walking routes, taking 30 days to read these meters, billing taking 30 plus days to get the bills to the customers, and customers understanding what their water usage is. We're going to discuss the process of how we rolled out WaterSmart, the steps we took, what WaterSmart consists of. We'll go through some slides demonstrating what the customer can see on the portal, how they can use the portal to better understand their water use as well. We're also going to provide some feedback from customers on how they feel about the portal and what their experiences are so far. And at the end, I'm going to wrap up with some next steps and some ideas that how we can better utilize the RF system, the Aclara network, and possibly discuss some future endeavors to get more out of this network. And at the end, I'll save some time for some questions and answers. So, how is Santa Barbara using the AMI system? We're using a couple items, enhanced metering capabilities. It now takes 1 hour to get the information from these meters. The meters will provide data on an hourly basis, whereas I mentioned earlier, it took 30 days for the staff to walk every single meter throughout the city, provide that data to utility billing, and utility billing taking 10 to 15 days to send those bills out to the customer to get that information. We have improved operator efficiency. This allows for the operators to see, now that we have the platform, Aclara, we have two platforms that we get the data from the meters. One is our infrastructure platform. That platform provides the data on how the meters are working, what our accuracy reading is, if we have any issues or concerns with any of our infrastructure endpoints, the DCUs throughout the system as well. So now we can respond and have proactive maintenance and proactive response times versus reactive or delayed response times. Customer empowerment. We now allow the customer the ability to see their usage and data and be able to respond accordingly. Whereas before, as I mentioned, it took them 45 days up to see if they had a leak or high usage, whereas now they could see that data within a day or two. And if they're not enrolled in our WaterSmart system, we're taking those efforts to reach out to let them know that we are seeing this information and get them better response time on their leaks as well.
Just as a little anecdote this morning, every morning I see what the ESW has been doing overnight. And then particularly one of the first ones up today was someone who happened to be on vacation and had called and said, could please someone go out and turn their water service off because there's a leak at their house. So it was really powerful. The person was out of town and could have led to a really costly bill and a big waste of water. So those seem to be coming up more and more after hours. Just people finding leaks through the AMI system.
And some of the data-driven insights allow staff to have conversations with customers. It could take a 20, 30-minute conversation, but it allows us to identify where this leak is occurring, how long the leak's been occurring. AMI and WaterSmart are so data-driven that it can actually tell you if it's an outdoor leak or an indoor leak based on usage patterns and how the water is used. So we can help customers identify if it's an indoor leak or outdoor leak as well. And again, in a timely manner. When customers are unreachable or not subscribed to the system, we are still contacting them. And if they are not responsive and we're not getting any calls back or response to our emails, we're actually going out and still hanging a door hanger saying, please reach out to us. We have some information regarding your water use that's important to you. At that time, staff's taking the opportunity to actually get customers to enroll and register for WaterSmart. Staff has been working very hard, placing calls every day. We have a dedicated staff member who's just reaching out for registration with WaterSmart and answering WaterSmart questions as well. Next slide, please. We're going to move into some key metrics of the AMI project. Some of the performance metrics, the read rate success has been above 98% since the implementation of the AMI system. We've reached 99+% at times. This does fluctuate depending on if there's a car parked on a meter or if some meters just aren't able to reach the DCUs, the information, or if there is a meter that needs to be replaced. We go out there and replace those registers. Sometimes the radio goes out as well. The 22 DCUs is a mesh network, so it allows meters to be able to communicate with not just one DCU. If one DCU fails or it just can't communicate with another, it tries one of the other two or one of the other DCUs. So having that mesh network out there is great, and having backup for the radios to be able to relay that information. The data accuracy, accurate reads are actually integrated into the billing system. If prior, the meter reader would go out there with the handheld, enter those numbers. We know how easy it is. I mean, I do it all the time. When I mend some of my kids $10, I send them $100 instead of 10 because I inaccurately put in the numbers. But now we can actually have accurate reads. They thank me, by the way, but still. It enables weekly reports for meter repairs, apologize. So Aclara now provides data, and there's a screenshot I'll show you in a few, that actually shows you if we're getting bad reads, if a meter's reading 0, if it's reading low, if one of the DCUs is operating at low power. So we actually have those weekly reports that we receive now that staff can go out and respond accordingly. The proactive notification to customers for high reads, I think this is probably one of the best tools for the customers out there. I didn't ask, I'm sure you all have access to WaterSmart, and I hope you're, utilizing it. And if you guys ever have any questions, our staff is very responsive in there. Some of my staff said that they've actually walked through it with you. So it's good to have that proactive notification, so that way you can catch a leak. As Joshua mentioned, you're out on vacation, you can see that you have water usage when you're not there. And we'll discuss that a little further, as well as some of the settings that you could put out there for those incidents where you don't want to, you're out of town and you want to make sure if there is water usage that you're notified as well. Operational efficiency. Now there's minimal manual readings again. I reiterate this because it's very important that we understand that now we're not going out there taking the 30 days to walk all 27,000 plus meters. It's actually a push of a button. Within 1 hour, we could collect all 27,000 reads and have that information over to utility billing. So again, the consumption of meter readers' times has dropped significantly, and that has allowed us to cut some staff as well, but also find other areas for staff to contribute to the water resources team, which I'll explain in a bit as well. Enhanced customer service. Again, we're now allowed to be able to contact customers. We have staff who will reach out to customers proactively, get them registered, notifying them of leaks, and just being available to make those home visits if needed, or just sit on the phone with the customer and explain to them what their data means and walk them through the system as well. Next slide, please. So go over some key AMI metrics. We had, again, as I mentioned earlier, we had about a little over 27,000 endpoints installed within 7 months. This was contracted through Concord, which was a contractor of Aclara AMI systems. And they actually, like as I mentioned, they came ahead of schedule, which they were due to be done in October. They finished in July, so we were very excited for that. They completed the installation, again, ahead of 3 months. The AMI network has continually performed above 98%. This is a great read rate success. Other agencies, we reach out to them, or I've been in a meeting or conference and someone says, yeah, we're very excited. We're getting 70% or 75%. We're like, we won't even tell you what we're getting because we don't want you to be upset, but yeah. 35, we're currently at 35% registration rate. I'll elaborate a little bit more on this in a future slide, but that's a great registration rate for where we're at right now. There have been about 599 high usage calls made since the portal launch. That's staff sitting at a desk, making phone calls, reaching out to customers, say, hey, we noticed you're not taking advantage of our new system. Please look into this. Give us an email address so we can get you registered and you have access to all this data. There's been 40,000 leaks detected with AMI in the past year. I know the question is, how can you have 40,000 if you only have 27,000 service connections? These are repetitive leaks. So for example, 509 State Street may have a leak, and every day it's reporting that there's a possible leak. So we're getting some of those repetitive leaks on the same property. But again, that's the power of this system, is that it'll continually remind you, let you know, hey, you're getting these high usage, these customers have this issue, please reach out to them. So there have been 8,500 leak alerts automatically sent to the subscriber. So if they have subscribed to leak alert, they're getting these on their cell phone, on their laptop, or any other mobile device that they're registered with. Next slide, please. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, staff roles have changed. So with the implementation of AMI, we no longer have meter readers. We have meter technicians because we've enhanced their capabilities. We've given them more duties and responsibilities to take on as meter technicians. As you can see previously, we manually read the meters 7 hours a day, 1 for the whole month, 30 days a month. And we're reading over almost 28,000 meters manually walking those routes. Now we can import that data in from each of those meters within 1 hour and a push of a button. We used to have to verify in person of high reads for bill accuracy, but this was completed every 30 days. So if you had a high usage, you get your bill 45 days after that usage. It takes us a few days to go verify it. We can't determine if there was a leak, if it has stopped. So now Automated reports will flag these high usages. It'll notify the technicians, hey, go check this out. We get out there within a day or two or within hours to verify that high usage, notify the customer of that usage. We used to hang door hangers for high usage every 30 days as well. Now it takes a matter of a day or two for us to contact customers who are not subscribed to the platform and notify them of high usage and that information as well. We used to have to diagnose stuck meters in person. We wouldn't notice it until we went to read that route. And then we'd have to schedule a work order and go out and repair that meter, replace that meter. Now we get that information daily. It tells us, hey, you got this meter that's reading 0. Sean and his staff will verify that. They'll go out into the field within a day, and they'll replace that meter within the next day or two. So they're getting very efficient at that. We haven't had a high replace rate, so I don't want it to sound that way, but they're efficient at responding to these issues that do come across. I do want to elaborate a little bit more on some of the other duties and responsibilities that our staff are taking on. We're currently working with water distribution to learn some of their customer response, service response duties that they take on the field. Their staffing levels have not allowed them to perform all the duties that they want to as well. So we're taking on some of the customer service aspects, responding to, a leak call or a leak on the property, or just being some of the first responders. We don't have all the knowledge and skill to do it, but we can at least bring this back to them and allow them to assess the situation and move forward with that. We're also taking on some of the on-call plumbing projects, which are larger projects with replacement with contractors outside of the city. We have some large meters that need to be replaced. Previously, currently distribution is handling those contracts with these contractors, managing the engineering side of it, working with engineering to get these projects on the books. Now we're going to take that on as the meter technicians as well. So that way we take another thing off their plate.
Quick question. Do you have times when there's high readings that are incorrect, and then you have to, evaluate whether the reader itself has some issues or the meter itself?
I don't think we've experienced that, Sean. Have we? Sorry.
Not where anything was incorrect. We've had it where something was programmed incorrectly.
Okay.
And we usually catch that because it's a pretty big chunk in usage, so it's easy to see. That's more of a programming record, not an error on any of the software, how the system's working.
So specifically the meters, there are two major metering technologies out there. We use a positive displacement meter, which is very accurate. And as it ages, the one thing that is challenging is it will underread. And that's one of the things, we'll talk a little bit about that as part of the presentation. But with positive displacement, you don't get overreading. The other type of meter that's out there is ultrasonic. It uses basically a sound to kind of generate it. Those do have a tendency to overread or underread. So they're a little more difficult. And right now that technology, we have a lot of neighboring agencies that are adopting that because there's no moving parts inside that. But I think there's still a lot that needs to be vetted with that technology to make us feel comfortable with that.
Next slide, please. So now we'll roll into the WaterSmart portal, and we'll give some insight into what tools are available, some screenshots of the WaterSmart portal as well. The WaterSmart portal will display the AMI water data to customers in a format that's easy to understand. You can use it on any computer device. You can use it on a home computer. You can use it on a laptop, a tablet, a cell phone. I mean, this guy's using it on one of the small cell phones. I probably wouldn't be able to see that, but he must have some great eyes. But you could see that even on this small cell phone, there's a lot of data there for these customers to see and review. And there's so many other screens that they have access to. The platform is currently available in 2 languages, in both English and Spanish for our customers. And the platform provides data that's beyond a paper bill. Paper bill, you get your data. You may have one graph on there that compares your usage from the previous month or the previous year, but now you have so much more data, which we'll roll into as well and explain it here. Next slide, please. So, as previously mentioned, we did the full rollout of WaterSmart in March 11th of this year. We did it in a beta phase rollout. We started with beta 0 rollout early last year, which was a very small group of people. We rolled it out in different batches. This allowed our staff to maintain control of these customers who were getting access to the portal. It allowed us to be responsive to customers who had questions on registering for the portal, and it was easier for us to complete the project because we still had other issues and things going on in the background that we need to finalize and iron out before we wanted to do the full rollout. But staff was very productive and great at getting this rolled out March 11th. We thought we were going to have some hiccups, but staff did a great job working through those hiccups and getting it rolled out. So we're very excited that everyone has access to WaterSmart in the portal. WaterSmart is a one-stop website for customers as well. It allows you to go there and pay your bill, any city utility bill. So it doesn't have to necessarily just be your water bill. If you have water, sewer, and trash, you could pay those there. If you have a trash account only, you could pay it there. And any other single source that you may have, you could pay it there. We're constantly looking at the website to put in new conservation measures. Our conservation team is continually looking at tools to put out there for customers. We know right now we have a lot of rain and people think there's an abundant amount of water, but staff is continually working on the conservation efforts to remind customers that it's not if, but when the next drought comes, and we have to be prepared for that. So WaterSmart is also intuitive in itself that it will create recommendations personalized for those customers as well. And also custom notifications. So we could send out city notifications if we wanted to. We can connect links on this website for customers to have access to other areas within the city as well. One other thing is if you have multiple accounts and you want to link them, you could do that on this portal. So you can log in with one login and have access to all your accounts on this one LinkedIn account. Next slide, please. Here's a screenshot of how you can understand your possible use. Again, as I mentioned earlier, WaterSmart is intuitive. It can see, what your normal patterns are, and it'll say your normal usage is blue, your possible leak usage is orange. And so you could see the dates and times that how long it's been occurring, what the amounts of flows are, and it lets you know what your water usage is based off of the previous year or the previous week. And so there's some very good information in there. On the right, there's communication preferences. You can see that a customer can subscribe or unsubscribe for leak alerts. They can either get them through emails, text messages, or voice messaging. There are other communication notifications, such as if you're out of town, you could set it to say, hey, I'm out of town between this date and this date. Please notify me if there's any water use. So as Joshua mentioned, hey, I'm out of town, I got water use, please shut off my water. You can also set it to let you know if you're using 2 times up to 5 times your normal water usage. It'll notify you of that as well, so that way you can respond accordingly. And there are other customizable notifications on there that the customer could set based off of how they want to receive them or if they don't want to receive them. So, next slide, please. Here's a screenshot of how you can evaluate your bill and understand what you're getting billed for. As you can see, the light blue is a service charge. We charge a base rate for just the meter at your property. And then we charge based off of, the sanitation is also on here, the darker blue. And then we have a tiered system with the city. And you can see the water will tell you, the graph will tell you which tier you're using this water in. So tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So you can better understand where your charges are coming from and get a better breakdown of your overall bill. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're talking about WaterSmart registration rates. This is by account type. But what I want to elaborate here is when we first rolled out WaterSmart, our goal was a 10% registration rate by the end of this fiscal year. We surpassed that within the first week. So Dakota and I told Josh, we're going to raise this up to 20%. A couple weeks later, we're at 30%. And we're like, Josh, we're sorry, we're just beating our records, but we're going to continue rolling this out. So we're anticipating being close to 40% by the end of this fiscal year. We still have a lot of outreach. Our staff is working with outreach consultant, and they still got some other tricks and ideas of getting this outreach out to the customers. They're working on that consistently and trying to get that information out there. I do believe with the next rollout of outreach, we're probably going to surpass 40%. And so this is a breakdown of how we are doing with account registrations. So single-family residential, you can see that's at 38%. I'll only go through a few of them. Irrigation, we're at 86%. Industrial, we're at 42%. Overall, there are total eligible accounts of over 30,000 accounts that are eligible. Again, this includes trash only, sewer only, or a combination of water, sewer, or trash. And we have a total of over 10,000 registered accounts. Next slide. As you can see, here's our graph of when we did the rollout in March. We were about a little over 12%, I think we were sitting at. And then by the end of April, we were close to that 35%. Today, we're just surpassed 35%. So this is the graph showing you how quickly those inclines happen and how quickly we had to move that target rate. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, some of the registration rates throughout other agencies varies, and we're very proud of where we are. As you see on this graph, this is comparable data to other agencies. WaterSmart does provide the service to these agencies as well, but they couldn't give a specific name of their agency. So as you can see, it's a North Carolina city. Not sure which one that is, but and then you have a Colorado city, Florida city. But if the interesting fact is, if you looked at the years that they've been deployed and how long they've been deployed, you could see we've been at less than a year, and we sit at 35%. North Carolina, who's been out for 6 years, is at 76%. So we're doing a very good job, and our staff is making sure that we get these registration numbers up. Next slide, please. Just want to provide some customer feedback of what we're receiving, what we're hearing from the customers. Simple, super simple and accessible website filled with important and interesting info. Thank you for the timely notice, such a great program. We appreciate the monitoring system and the heads up. Next slide, please. Oh, that did happen. And then here's the interesting one. Appreciate the heads up. The gardener left a hose running. I wouldn't have spotted it if it had not been for the notification. So it's those accidental things that your kids may do, you know, put a toy into the flapper in the toilet and it's leaking for a few days, you know. I've had that happen. That's why I can speak from experience. So, or just, you know, walking out of a room and forgetting to turn off a faucet and you go into the store for a few hours. So these are some great feedbacks from the customers. We've gotten a handful of customers who are not satisfied or upset about the product, but we deal with them and we handle them and we explain to them the benefits. And for the majority of the time, we can turn their mindset around and let them know this is a benefit for you. It is something that's going to assist you as well. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, I want to discuss some of the AMI features that we currently have and some thoughts and ideas for next steps. These are not initiatives that we're currently taking on, but they are thoughts and ideas that can work with our RF system. Aclara is a radio frequency system. It is already an owned product by the city, and it is something that can allow communication across multiple devices, multiple endpoints. So we've been discussing ways that we can take advantage of that, use a system that we owned, and enhance all systems within the city. So some of them are, you know, WaterSmart is trying to develop software. Their software is out there trying to integrate with WaterSmart that have AI built into it that will allow for predictive modeling. You know, what does the future look like for your usage? How can we predict what your usage is going to be next year, next week, next month? The infrastructure communication is prolonging the lifespan of our system. So now we can see that a meter doesn't necessarily have to be changed out after 15 years because of the manufacturer warranty or because you have those meter salesmen coming telling you, hey, our meter only lasts this long. We can actually see how long the meters are lasting and do some predictive analysis on replacements. Distribution system enhancements. There's the ability to put some endpoints out there for pressure monitoring, leak detection, stuff like that. Those are big endeavors, so those will take a lot of time to discuss, and hopefully in the future we can see where we're at with that. The RF system communications with all endpoints. Again, it could be as small as putting a meter on a well and then putting an endpoint on there that communicates through our system as well. The AMI and WaterSmart is a great tool for customers. I keep saying it because it is very important that they understand that it allows them to personalize their use of their water. It allows them to understand their conservation efforts, if they're working or if they need to work on improving those as well. It's a tool that staff is using to continuously communicate with the customer out there. We handle probably over 90% of our issues or concerns with the customer on a phone now versus having to go to make a local visit. Or we're not getting those phone calls because they just turn on WaterSmart and they can see where their water usage is. Next slide, please. That concludes my presentation. Do I have any further questions? Yes.
Thank you so much. This is really exciting to see the updates and the incredible uptake of the system. So great work on that. I had a couple of questions I was jotting down. One was about the who has registered for WaterSmart so far, and thinking about the recent work that's been done in the city about affordability and seeing like who is registering for this, and if you have a sense like demographically. The breakdown of customer class was great, but I'm wondering if there are like certain neighborhoods or if we know kind of who's been registered.
Dakota, you want to take a crack at that?
Water Commissioner Snyder, thank you for the question. That's a great question. We are currently looking at developing what we're calling Water Conservation 2.0. So how we're going to enhance our water conservation program now that we have these AMI tools available to us. And that's a piece that we want to integrate in. So there'll be kind of this equity component. And we could apply the census tracts that were used to analyze the water affordability study and look at who's signing up and potentially target programs to those customers that have been harder to reach according to the results of the affordability study. So it's on our radar.
And then somewhat related, the breakdown of the like how the bill is separated by tiers is really helpful. And I was wondering if information about bill assistance is available on the WaterSmart portal.
I'm not sure of that. Do any of the staff know if we have information on the bill assistance? I'm not sure, but we can add that information, so that's a great recommendation. We'll go back and we'll see how we can get that to the portal as well.
I know that there was some, I'm not sure how long some of those bill assistance programs are going, but it seems like that would be a helpful addition for folks.
And a good segue to, we are bringing back an item in July to talk about kind of actions out of the water affordability audit. And this, I think, is a great one. Like, how can we further get that information out there? What are we developing? Kind of keep our customers in the loop. So yeah, that's a really good suggestion.
And then final comment or question was just, I know that WaterSmart has been known for their smiley faces and kind of the behavioral component of comparing to similar users. Is there any of that in the portal, like being able to compare not only to your past use, but also kind of what would be a normal or a conservation-oriented use for your household?
Great question. Yes, there are customizable features where you can put in your size of your lot, how much grass you have on your lot, how many fixtures you have within your lot, and it'll compare you to, it'll give you comparables to other customers that have the same water use patterns or should have the same water use patterns as you.
Thank you.
I have a comment and then a question. I had a business meeting yesterday, just yesterday, and a number of people sitting around the table, and the person who had chaired the meeting basically before I started going said, "Are you still involved with a water commission or something like that?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, I got this notice that I had excessive water use, and I called, and I found out I had a running toilet. It had been running for a day or two." And he just went on and on and on about what a wonderful service this is and how great it is to be basically notified in such a way. And everybody around the table basically wanted to know more. So add
Great.
that to your list of compliments in that regard. My question, I live on West Valerio, and every winter the Ealing's Park comes down and puts all its mud into our street. How durable are these within the water meter itself? Because it's covered with mud every year, numerous times.
So they're pretty durable. They're water resistant. They can work underwater if they're submerged in water. Under mud, you may have some questions depending on how thick the mud is or how submerged it is. But they're pretty reliable. I mean, we can get through the concrete cases. We had some that they said they couldn't get through metal cases. We're getting communication through some of those metal cases. Even in some parking lots, we're getting communication that's coming out of those as well. So,
Great. And that 2% failure or whatever, is that related essentially to the meter issue, most likely?
yes, that's basically related to an MTU that needs to be updated or replaced or something like that. So,
Again, I was in the beta test, and I just got to tell you, good job. Thank you all for in that regard.
the staff deserves that praise. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is phenomenal. I think being part of this from early on, many of us have really appreciated it. And I have a question about disputes of bills. And I just had a recent experience speaking to a resident who was disputing the information. And it seemed to me, and maybe you can comment on this, it seemed to me that we have so much data in timing and how that works and what time of day and how it compares to other neighbors. And if you could maybe speak to that part, because this is all very proactive for people who want to conserve or want to know that they have a leak. But how does it work on the other side of that when people are disputing?
So I think you answered part of that question perfectly, is we have the data available at our fingertips. We have the reports that can reflect how these readings are. Obviously, we verify still, but this data is so accurate because it's coming across a network. It's coming through the actual meter reading. So there's no room for error. There's no 30-day window, 40-day window where you may have missed something. A customer could say, well, yeah, you charged me 100 units, but I didn't use that water. I don't know where it's at. We can actually pull graphs to say, look, on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, you had prolonged use, and this is what the meter is reflecting. So you left the hose on, or you filled up a swimming pool, and they're not reporting that. So we have the data, we have the information available to us to be able to work with the customer on the dispute, not dispute a dispute, but work with them to better understand how this issue may have come about.
Mm-hmm. And how many, I think it was recently, I can't remember the number, maybe it was at our last Water Commission meeting, about how many sort of issues there were and how many had been resolved and
Like the
leaks.
phantom leak kind of
Yeah, the phantom
question,
leak question.
Right. I think it was like 12 or something like that in the city that like had been, like, they couldn't figure out what the issue was.
I think it
on
was
people's
only
bills.
2.
Oh, 2?
But
12.
it was
Those are
it
very
was
close
last month.
numbers.
It's okay. I don't know. But just congratulations. This is a really, really successful program. And just anecdotally, my brother-in-law in Oregon, somebody left a sink tap on and it flooded their entire house that had to be completely rebuilt. So something even that seems small, if people get notification, and
Yes.
especially on the hillsides and all these leaks that happen that people aren't aware of. So really, really appreciate it.
Well, congratulations to you and all the city customers as well. It's a great product, and we're hoping everyone takes advantage of it.
And I'll do just a little PSA here because we do want to get people signed up. I mean, our staff are monitoring it 5 days a week when these, to kind of flag stuff and get people out there. And then there is some like, well, you monitor it for me and let me know if there's a problem. And that's not what we're here to do. We've got a lot of infrastructure to maintain. We certainly want to help folks, avoid those spikes in bills. We really need to get people to sign up. That way they have direct access to this. They're getting timely information because we do not have people monitoring this during the week ends or holidays and things like that. So really trying to get people, and hopefully they'll see, we're continuing to add features to it, that there will be benefits that far outweigh, again, having another account and another notification come on their phone.
Great. Any more comments or questions from the commission?
I just
Yeah,
had
please.
a practical question. For
Right.
the mobile, is there an app or is it just like a web page on mobile?
I believe it's an app that they can access. It is a webpage? It's not right. These people are smarter than me, that's why they help me out.
Is it, I know there's what's the name of the other app, the City of
The
Santa
city
Barbara?
one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
is it possible to have WaterSmart on SB Connect someday?
Good question. Another one to follow up on. Yes.
Sorry about the homework. Do we have any public comment or question?
No public comment.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank
We
you all.
appreciate it. And we'll move on to the water supply update.
All right, today we have Jasmine Showers who's going to be walking us through a water supply update. So great that she could deliver such great news today.
Good morning, Chair Cooney. Try again. Good morning, Chair Cooney, Water Commissioners, and Councilmember Sneddon. I am Jasmine Showers, and I'm here to provide our water supply update, and it is good news. So today I'll start with a recap of winter 2024, go over our current water supply status, go over our water supply strategy. And this year we don't have a formal recommendation for commission or for city council, so this is informational only. We'll begin with the winter 2024 recap. We've had another rainy winter, as you probably all know. Gibraltar Reservoir, and this is as of May 6th, is at 162% of normal rain. Lake Cachuma is at 156% of normal, and Santa Barbara is at 179% of normal rain. So not quite as much of a record-breaking year as last year, but still very, very good rain. And this graph shows the water year, or the rain per water year from 1968 to 2024. And the dashed red horizontal line shows average rain. The green bars are above average rain. Brown is below average, and then blue is near average, so near normal rainfall. And if you look at the right-hand side of the screen of the chart, it shows a good illustration of last year compared to this year. So water year 2023 had 203% of normal rainfall. And this year to date, we're at 142%. And we are definitely still benefiting from the amount of rain that we got last year. So I thought it'd be good to back up to where we were in December of 2022. And this is from the U.S. Drought Monitor, and it's showing, this is very zoomed out, so it's showing physical characteristics of the state of California, like stream flow and soil moisture content. And most of the state was experiencing a severe or even to an exceptional drought. And that quickly changed with the storms in 2023. And on the right-hand side is the graph presented during the water supply update last year. And you can see how much it changed. And now most of the state is not experiencing drought conditions, with just some patches of abnormally dry. And if we continue on to December of 2023, you can see that we are still benefiting from that moisture from last year. And now most of the state is not experiencing dry conditions. And then in May 2024, that's just receded a little bit. So pretty steady conditions this year. This graph shows our water production on a monthly basis, and then it also has some demand projections. And the black line shows our monthly production from 1985 to current, so current as of April 30th. And you can see some big drops in production here, and those coincide with our large droughts. So the first drop is in production is in the late 1980s, early 1990s. And then production rebounded a little bit. And then the next drop coincides with the beginning of the last drought around 2013. And then production has rebounded a little bit since then. But it hasn't rebounded to pre-drought, which I think really shows our customers' commitment to water conservation. And then the blue line shows our enhanced urban water management demand productions. And I think it's interesting to see from 2020 to about 2022, our production was tracking very well with that. And then in 2023 to present, we've been dropping below. So you can see that gap between demand and production.
Yeah, just a quick question.
Yeah.
Is the Montecito delivery in there?
Not in this graph.
Okay. That was my main question. Thanks.
Yes.
So you could add what? What is that?
1,400.
1,400. Okay, great. Thank you.
And we will be, as you can see on here, the last time we updated, I can't believe this is 2020 when we did the Enhanced Urban Water Management Plan, and we do this every 5, I know, didn't we just do that? And so 2025, we'll be doing another update to this, so we will kind of reflect kind of our new reality. of where our customers are at. So, and doing some updated projections based on conservation efforts, and I think reflecting also the proposed rates that we're implementing and how that might even impact kind of this projections in the future.
Yes, yeah, we need to see, we're paying attention to this because we need to see if this is a true behavior change in water use or a reaction to these very wet years. And this graph shows our water use in gallons per capita per day, GPCD, and compares it to the proposed state regulatory budgets. And as a reminder, this state legislation that represented on this graph is SB 606, AB 1668, often called Making Water Conservation a California Way of Life. We call it in this graph the regulatory framework. It has kind of a long name. And that's represented on this graph in the dashed red line. That's our current state regulatory budget, which is 109 GPCD. And then the dashed orange line is our 2035 projected budget. So that's with the information that we have right now, as low as we think our citywide budget will be. And this should be compared to that orange line, which is our city regulatory GPCD. And the framework legislation is very specific about how to calculate GPCD. So this includes all of our water use, aside from CII indoor use. And then the light blue line shows our 12-month residential GPCD. So that's the one that we're more used to seeing. And as you can see from this graph, we are well below our 2024 budget, so our current budget, and then also well below our 2035 projected budget. And we expect the state to finish and adopt the legislation by August 18th this year. And we'll come back to Water Commission with more details about that once we know the final calculations.
One of the things I learned at the recent conference I went to is, I had this in my head, that we're doing great compared to the goals. Therefore, I was anticipating that means we're going to spend a lot less time on this, and that was not accurate. There is a ton of work, performance measures and reporting that comes with this. So despite the fact that we are doing so well, it's still going to be much more staff time than prior reporting requirements. So just want to keep that in mind as we kind of work through and continue to make sure that we have, sufficient staff to continue to work on this effort.
And this graph continues with our state regulatory GPCD budgets, but it looks at it on a monthly basis over the past year. And the framework regulation proposes a budget made up of 4 parts. Blue is shown here as our residential indoor budget, and green is our residential outdoor budget. And part of the outdoor budget is based on on weather use, weather data. So that's why it changes throughout the year. And then we also have our water loss budget in orange and our CII dedicated irrigation meter budget in pink. And those 4 parts together make the total budget. And this graph is to see how we're tracking on a month-to-month basis. So we compare that to our purple line, which is our monthly actual regulatory GPCD, which again doesn't include indoor CII use.
So I think the important takeaway here is, and the state is they don't care how we get there, but that we get to that purple line, or would you say, the top of the bars is, and we could, obviously we're meeting that now, but we could shift in different areas and still meet that. But it will help us, I think this granular will help us where we're struggling the most as we kind of go through and further refine our conservation efforts.
Can you help clarify on this? So what's the purple line again?
The purple line is our regulatory or actual GPCD. So it's our total water use, and then I subtract out our indoor CII use.
Got it. Okay. So that's like what counts under the
Yes,
regulation,
yeah.
essentially. Thank you.
Couple of questions. So the water loss budget, that's, this is an estimated amount and not necessarily the actual. But what are we doing in terms of being able to reduce that water loss? That's in the mains and all the distribution system, not at the home level, or is that correct?
Yes, and that is something I know Ms. Corey mentioned during the last presentation. We are also hoping to take a real look at water loss and see what sort of technologies are available. On this graph, it's actually a set, in the budget part, it's a set allowed amount that we have per year.
So we have, correct me if I'm wrong, somewhere between 1,000 and 1,200 acre feet a year of water loss.
1,000 or slightly less.
Okay. And of that, we think about 300 to 400 acre feet is probably recoverable through system fixes and so on. And one of the challenges that we're looking at is just the staffing to go after that. I mean, we have our main replacement program, but one of the other conference takeaways is they now have the ability to, with satellites, to detect leaks in your system. They're looking for salinity in the water, so they can tell the difference between stormwater, potable water, and wastewater. So they can actually tell if there's exfiltration. And they can do this and give you kind of like, oh, this area, there seems to be something like potable water leaking out of the system. Then you got to go in and do sounding, is typically what we do. And we're basically sensitive microphones looking for where that leak might be. And all of this sounds really great. Our team is super excited about this, but the challenge is like, where does that fit in our current staffing resources? So that's one of our challenges. Ms. Corey, expand on that.
So this is a good point in conversation to let you all know that we are already anticipating that 2025 Urban Water Management Plan, and we're starting to look at what work we want to do under the umbrella of the Urban Water Management Plan. The requirements from the state for the urban plan haven't changed much from the last 5 years, so that's kind of nice. For the city, sometimes that means it becomes a little bit of a box checking exercise and just making sure that we're putting the data in the right places so that the state can say, yes, your plan meets our requirements. But it's also a good opportunity to kind of look at our water supply situation as a whole. We won't go as in depth as we did with the enhanced plan because that analysis, especially on the supply side, is still very valid. But we are looking at a couple of different business case, and one of them is around water loss. So what opportunities do we have to get at some of that water loss in a cost-effective manner? And we would compare that to like our conservation programs, which we also look at the cost effectiveness as an overall strategy for conservation and just basically like cleaning our own house. You know, we're asking our customers to pay attention, so we should be paying attention to our system too.
Right. So moving on to water supply status. Cachuma Reservoir is full. And as of May 10th, it's over 196,000 acre feet. And the official spill date is February 1st of 2024. It's currently still spilling. We expect it to spill into June, well into June. And as a result of this spill, we did lose stored carryover water this year. It was almost 7,000 acre feet. However, we have been operating in surplus conditions, and this happened last year as well. So anytime that Cachuma is spilling, the city and other Cachuma member units can take Cachuma water without it counting against our allocation. And we did receive 100% allocation for this water year, and that's 8,277. And this picture is actually from March, and I just wanted to point out you can see some snow up in the mountains, which will tie in with Gibraltar Reservoir. Gibraltar is also full, and the storage at Gibraltar as of May 10th is 4,716,000 acre feet. And this began spilling, actually got in right at the end of last year, December 27th of 2023. And we expect Gibraltar to continue spilling well into June as well. And our plan right now is to maximize Gibraltar starting in this month. And that takes advantage of the very good water quality present at the reservoir right now, and then also maximizes our hydroelectric production. And the top picture shows a really good view of the full reservoir. And then the bottom picture is from March 6th, and I think illustrates how it has been colder this year.
Yeah, that's Frank Deely, our caretaker up there. And we are getting close to closing the final spill gate, which will means that then we'll just be releasing over the skimmer gate, which is a much smaller gate. But typically, when we do have spill years, we'll send divers up there because to make sure those gates are nice and sealed up. They have a technique of putting rags, it sounds very sophisticated, in the gates to make sure that we hold as much water as we can. These are some pretty large gates, and so even highly technical. And it's a great cooperation. I don't know if you know this, but the city's waterfront has divers who do maintenance on the fence, and we're typically able to get them to come up for the day and offer them sandwiches and and they'll come up and help us with that. It's been a good relationship. Mm-hmm.
And this is the Gibraltar Reservoir hydrograph from 1991 to 2024. And the blue shows the storage volume, and the orange shows the total capacity. And the drops in the orange line are when we have bathymetric surveys and we know the new change in capacity. And then you can see the intersection between the blue and the orange is when the reservoir spilled. And city engineering staff does hope to do the next bathymetric survey this summer. They're currently waiting for the road to open back up. And that's something that we try to do every year. We weren't able to do that last year due to road closures and then scheduling conflicts. So unfortunately, we don't know the effect of these large storms on storage yet.
So you guys can just point out on here, we have the Zaka fire, which is that 2008, and then we had the Thomas fire in 2000. That's when you see it show up in water loss or storage loss in the reservoir. Sediment. Mm-hmm.
Are there any opportunities for when it's really spilling to actually dredge and let some of that go through?
It seems like there should be, because at this point, the bottom of the reservoir is at the bottom of the gates for the most part. I keep envisioning someone up there with a big mixer when it's raining that could stir it up and have it go over. But I think we would be challenged to permit that aspect of it. We have had some conversations of this, some type of conceptually where you have like a giant clamshell where you take the sediment and put it in the plunge pool, which is on the downstream side, and just pile it up there. And then when you do get a storm, it will mobilize that. But I think getting permits for even that could be difficult. Yeah.
All right. So moving on to the state water project. Our current allocation is 40%. So that's 1,320 acre feet. And with the amount of water in the state system, we'd expect to have 100% allocation this year. So I'll spend some time talking about why that is. And the main reason is that pumping has been limited into San Luis Reservoir from the San Francisco Bay Delta. And this is due to required fish take reductions that the Department of Water Resources is facing. And DWR's share of storage in this San Luis Reservoir is only 52% full. And one of the benefits of that for us is that our stored carryover water is not in danger of spilling. So we have almost 2,000 acre feet that is safe from spill. And then we do continue to analyze groundwater banking and water sales opportunities.
Can I ask a quick question
Yeah.
there? I think when on the Cachuma slide, it said 100% allocation, and then this says 40%, but it's just 40% of Table A, or is?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, so specifically for the state water project, we only received 40% allocation.
Thank you.
So it was interesting at the conference I was at, Gavin Newsom made a surprise visit and kind of was incredibly passionate about water issues, which was nice to hear from him. He even mentioned the word desal, which was impressive. But one of the things that he hit home is he's got 3 years left on his term, and one of the two big things that he wants to get done is he wants to get the site's reservoir permitted. And there seems to be a lot of momentum in there. That's an offline storage, very similar to Casitas locally, where you're pumping water out of the river into there. And then wanting to get the permitting for the pipeline, the 32 or 36 foot diameter pipeline through the Delta, at least the environmental completed on that. So two massive projects to try and shore up the reliability of the state water project.
And the graphic on the left shows the status of California major water supply reservoirs. And the blue line indicates how full each reservoir is. And then the yellow is kind of the space still left for water to come in. And then the green horizontal bar is historical average. So most of the northern reservoirs are full, and some in the south too. And then we'll expand on San Luis to kind of explain where storage is at that. And a quick note about snowpack this year, we're at 99% average to date. So it's not a record-breaking snowpack year, but it's still very, very good. So San Luis is 67% full. And the graph on the right shows there's two different agencies that have the rights to store water in San Luis. The blue, light blue is the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, and then the dark blue is DWR's share. And the horizontal lines, the red lines, the top one is the total capacity, and then the middle one is DWR's capacity. So if you compare that dark blue section to that middle dotted line, you can see that DWR's share of the water is only about 50%.
And this is a great opportunity to just talk about USPR. Most of that water is really agricultural based. And then DWR's our portion, that's the state water project water. So, this was a hard one for me to get my head wrapped around, given the amount of water flowing around the state, that we're at a 40% this go around. And so, I think this kind of points to some of the challenges and bottlenecks that are happening in the Delta.
Yes.
So just a question, again, when you get to spillage and you look at those percentages, they must have a formula for who spills, how do they divide up that spillage? Because we lost, at least a couple of years ago, I think we lost 1,000+ acre feet.
That's right. Yes, so we have the ability to, for DWR, which was State Water Project, we have up to 1 million acre feet that we can store, and then once we go over that, then we start to a spill condition and we start to lose water. Yeah.
Okay. But if USBR basically continued to get larger, again looking at these percentages, the percentages stay the same. They spill first.
Yeah, and what's interesting with it is it's a paper spill, this
Yes.
reservoir, because we're pumping water into it.
Correct.
It's kind of this man-made spill in a sense that we've created on paper. We have at times, I think during the drought, we would allow each other to use portions of their storage if it was available. So there is some sharing there. But yes, if we kind of start to max out, for example, with USBR's water, and if we have capacity, I think there's probably some room to share, but theirs would spill if we didn't have any room.
Yeah. Okay. And next, we'll talk about desal. And as you may remember, part of the 2020 Enhanced Urban Water Management Plan defined desal in that it plays an important role in drought preparation, response, and recovery. And we've really seen this in the way that it allows us to store carryover water in Lake Cachuma. So even in 2023, we lost our carryover water, and since then we were able to build up 7,000 acre feet. And that did spill this year, but we won't have a spill every year. Our groundwater basins, we have discontinued pumping since January 2023. We continue to monitor for water levels and seawater intrusion. We are seeing an upward trend in water levels in the Foothill Basin, and then a decrease in seawater intrusion in Storage Unit 1. And we do have a pilot ASR study at San Roque Well, and this is for artificial recharge of treated surface water. And staff hopes to bring a very detailed look at the ASR study later, I think in September or October this year. And this groundwater map is just to orient you as we go through the graphs in the next few slides. The green shows our Foothill Basin, and then the blue, the darker blue, shows our Storage Unit 1. And San Roque Well is in Foothill. That's where the ASR injection is going on. It's kind of in between or near the border with the blue. And this chart shows our historical groundwater levels and pumping in Foothill Basin. And this is from 1980 to 2024. The lines show water surface elevations of the monitoring wells in Foothill Basin, and those correspond to the left-hand axis. And then the bars at the bottom show our non-city pumping in green, and red shows our total city pumping, and those correspond to the axis on the right. And there's a circle around the right-hand part of the graph to demonstrate that as pumping dropped off here, for Foothill Basin it dropped off in 2017, and you can see the recovery of those water levels, or water surface elevations. And this is the same graph, but I thought it'd be interesting to zoom in on the last 10 years. So this is Foothill Basin from 2014 to 2024. And here you can see again that most of the pumping stopped in 2017, and water levels have been increasing since then. And ASR injections peaked this year in January and February with a total of 41 acre feet. So you can see the reaction of the basin to that injection. And then those two little pumpings that you see in the bottom right-hand side are related to the ASR pilot study as well.
A quick question, is there connectivity between the Foothill and the Storage Unit 1, or are those kind of separate in terms of?
I am not sure.
Yeah, there is a fault that has kind of broken those two groundwater basins, but there is, as I understand it, when or if the Foothill Basin was ever full, it would show up in Mission Creek and spill into Storage Unit 1.
Do you need me to go back? No? This is showing historical groundwater levels and pumping in Storage Unit 1. And the data here is from 1980 to 2024. And pumping here largely dropped off in 2017, and then we've had a few periods of pumping, and this really ended in January of 2023. And you can see the water levels have been increasing. They're similar now to late 1990 levels. And for this storage unit, we are not as concerned about water levels. It's more the concern is seawater intrusion. And today I'll be showing two chloride monitoring wells. The first one is near our El Estero Water Resource Center. So the red arrow is pointing to this well, and it's between the beach and 101. So this graph shows chloride levels from 1985 to 2023. Our last data point was from late last year. And you can see the reaction of the basin when we stop pumping, and those chloride levels really start dropping. And right now they are showing a decrease in levels. We'll consider a full recovery when they get down to about 50 to 200 milligrams per liter. So they're on their way there.
Just a comment, it's just very interesting to see that 1989-92 drought actually had more impact there than the recent drought, which again, experiencing both of those, I would have thought them flipped. But that's a curious abnormality.
And part of that is where we're pumping. We pumped in the storage unit further inland. So I think that had
Added effect.
added effect to that. That's a good point. And then, I think one of the stories I like to tell was storage unit 1. So, as soon as we can get these down, I'm excited to get these down. So then we can start pumping what I consider the safe yield from this basin. This basin does fill up pretty quick. I think there's opportunities to really, deliver some low-cost water here, but we really want to get this basin back into good, healthy standing. And to give you kind of a sense, this is good, that, ocean chlorides are around 30,000. And so, we're on our way there at 683, but I think to get back down to that point, and then we can start taking that safe yield, which I don't remember what it was, but a couple hundred acre feet a year. Yeah.
Yes.
Quick questions. We don't actively inject to keep the salt water out. We don't.
Correct.
We don't.
So the second chloride monitoring well is more inland. You can see El Estero Water Resource Center there, and now we've moved inland to the intersection between Garden Street and Palm Ave. And the story of this graph is that there is no seawater intrusion at this well. This data is from about 1990 to 2023. And our last data point there is from June 15th, and it's showing 80 milligrams per liter. But there doesn't seem to be an interaction between pumping or droughts at this for seawater intrusion. And our recycled water plant is still operating and meeting customer demands. Demands have been very low, again, due to the wet winter, so similar to last year. And this recycled water does play an important supply role. We see this more in the summer when people are irrigating outside. And moving on to our water supply strategy. The headline is the city has plenty of water to meet demands for the next 3 years. And this is even with conservative planning assumptions where we assume that next year will be very dry and we're immediately going to be in drought conditions again. We plan to maximize available surface water, mainly at Gibraltar. And we have no plans to pump groundwater basins. And we do not plan to use state water project for the rest of water year 24. When the water supply water supply update was presented in November, we did plan to use some state water in the next water year and water year 26, and that's something that we may not need to do anymore, but we're going to reassess at the end of this water year. And a note that water conservation does continue to remain very important, especially with the framework regulation being adopted this summer, and then also weather unpredictability.
And you thought you were going to get away without seeing this next graph. We could not stop ourselves.
There's no escaping this graph. This is extremely similar to what was presented in November. And most of the bars here show actual water use corresponding to the source that they came from. And then the last 3 bars on the right show projected water use. And the only change from November is we're projecting to use more Gibraltar surface water instead of Cachuma. And with that, I'm open for questions.
I had a question about maximizing surface water and thinking about how we use desal water and knowing that there's not a ton of flexibility right now, but thinking in the future, like, are there options to make desal more flexible in terms of using less when we have surplus surface water?
Yes, that is a great question, and one of the things that we've been exploring with our contract operator, which is, at least initially, how can we turn this facility off from 4 to 9 every day? Like, that would be huge. So kind of backing up a little bit, we spend about $1 million on electricity for 8 months in the winter or off season. And then we spent another $1 million for just operating it for 4 months in the summer. When we were, last summer, we had a PhD student here on site kind of looking at the desal plant. And in particular, he was looking at, how could we optimize this facility so that it supported the electric grid in many ways. And so one of it was if we turned off one of the treatment skids every day from 4 to 9, showed to have about $500,000 in savings in just electricity alone. So exploring that, trying to figure out what that looks like, and then how to maintain, I think to your point, how do we maintain not only the labor force, but this complicated facility, which doesn't sit well. It's like our recycled water system. You can make the same argument. Recycled water is one of our more expensive sources, and what do you do with that expensive investment? And turning it off has challenges in taking it offline as well for prolonged periods of time. Certainly, you could do a month or something like that, but what to do with it? And I think that's something we need to continue to explore, because I think that ideally that would be best for our customers and our costs going forward.
Sorry, but just following up, so the opportunity to turn off 4 to 9 has not been, it's explored, but it has not been implemented, and you don't think it can be?
We haven't, only because right now our contract operator struggles to bring it back online. So if we wanted it off from 4 to 9, they would take another 2 hours to get the system up and stabilized again, which then makes, and then now we're pushing them into, they need to keep extra staff on hand, potentially working after hours or working later. And so we haven't quite fine-tuned that, but this summer we want to kind of explore a little bit more of that with them. And then, as you may recall, we are enrolled in a energy shedding program. So if they call us and say we need to shut off, we do shut down, and as a result, final tally is somewhere around $280,000 a year that we get to participate in that program. And last year, I think even if they don't ask us, last year I think we were asked to shut down twice, maybe 3 times, and so we still got $280,000 for doing that.
So I may have missed it. The conveyance line to Cater from desal, fully operational?
The pipeline is done and it's in service. Right now it's bringing Cater water down to the low zone. The pump station project is in construction right now to be able to push the water up. So that's in construction. We're hoping that will wrap up by fall. And that'll be the component to take it up towards Cater. And then, as you may recall, there's the Cater Reservoir Resiliency Project, and that will actually plummet into the clear well.
Right.
But once we get the pump station, we'll be able to get it up to that zone and be able to distribute it pretty much anywhere in the city.
So I'm looking then at your report on actual production. Desal's about 200 acre feet a month in that regard.
Yeah.
And previously that was just being distributed to the lower zone.
Yeah.
Right? At only 200 acre feet, when would we ever get to basically moving that amount of water up?
Well, and it's one of the things that we're talking about too right now is toggling it. Maybe in the summer months when the demands in the low zone down here are so high, why would we pay the extra cost to pump it up there? So there's working on kind of that flexibility. In the winter, that's kind of ideal. There's not a big demand for water down here, but there is throughout the city. And then we'd move it up there. Electrical costs are less in the winter. So there's a lot of trying to figure out how to work with all those factors to try and optimize the system.
Great. Thanks, Joshua.
Thank you. I love this whole presentation, beginning to end, just the big picture view, the small picture view, each individual basin, and then the historical view over time for all of these. And I love this last graph, your 29 graph. I think it's
It's bad rap.
There've been a lot of iterations of it, but I think this one is it because it really shows that diversified water portfolio and the responsiveness to the conditions year to year and projecting out conservatively to the future. And I think it tells the whole complete story in one graph. So I think this one, this whole presentation wrapped into one. I do have one question about it. So the water sales to Montecito Water, and those are sort of lumped in with the Cachuma allocation carryover in Montecito. Am I reading that right? And so we're putting it in here as a water sale or use. I mean, is it water in or is it water out or is it net zero because we're producing it and then selling it? Or if you could just
So in that graph, which is my favorite graph,
yes.
Montecito sales are included. And currently, the Montecito water sales agreement is based on desal water, but as Joshua or Mr. Hangmark just explained, we don't quite have the capability to get the desal water up to cater yet. So what's happening is they're getting Cachuma water. And so when we account for that Montecito water in that graph, it looks like Cachuma water right now. But the total height of the bar includes our sales to Montecito.
Got it. Thank you. That helps with that. And I think when we made the agreement, we said it's water molecules, but we're not saying where exactly they're from.
Right.
And okay, and that helps.
Ms. Corey, you want to talk a little about what you've been working with La Cumbre?
So we are talking about a potential short-term water sales agreement. La Cumbre Mutual Water Company has interest in more of a long-term sales agreement like we've had with Montecito. We're not quite in a place yet where we can execute a longer-term sales agreement, but we are still doing short-term sales with them. And so I believe this month their board was going to review a proposal that I sent over to them for the sale of 500 acre-feet for this year, which will bring in, I believe, about $1.7 million to the city. So we've got the water. They would like to use it. I think it's a great win-win for everybody.
Thank you.
Just a quick comment. So all water molecules are the same, but some of them have more energy embedded in them. And so it's probably better to use Cachuma than use desal as much as we can. Because, right, because it's just that's really important. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. And any public comment or questions?
No public comments or questions.
Great. Let's move on to the Water Resources Manager's report.
All right. Well, I started sitting down to write notes for this, and we've got a lot of things to cover today. So I'm happy to speak to anything in the packet, but given that we just went over the water supply update, if you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. But working on a few different things. We'll start off with, we were planning to cancel. We have no plans. We don't have no items for June. And given that this commission diligently meets every month, all the time, this will take a small break for June, and we'll resume things in July. So may have seen some information. It's been coming up quite a bit about Vic Trace, in particular the Radio Club. Okay, and I say the city are doing what we can to help facilitate them finding a new home. It is challenging because we can't use ratepayer money to move them or offset their costs, and they are a club, and so I've been encouraging them. They've been talking a lot about their value to the community, and so I'm like, where are all those community that are getting benefits from you? If that's the case, why aren't they stepping up to help as well? But we have been allowing them in a lease. This has been a lease we had with them to be there for free. So we have been supporting them. The challenge, I think, they are, by nature of the radio club, they're kind of a, how do I put it? They like to go around the system. I can appreciate this. The radio club has been around for a long time, and so we've had issues over the years with access. They seem to come and go from the facility in a manner that's not suitable for a water facility that needs to be secure. And they've had challenges because they are various members there putting antennas here and there, and they've actually had twice that their tower has fallen over. One, it's fallen over onto a neighbor's yard, and the other, most recent one last year, it fell over. Unfortunately, did not take down any of our fire and police stuff and didn't injure anybody, but it fell down too because there's just no checks and balances to how they operate on site. So I think we're open to having them come back in the future under maybe some different terms of operation. Anticipate them being part of our design process for the site. Yesterday, Tuesday, awarded the contract for the trace design. But we do need to have them get off the site for the time being. We're trying to get all of these third-party, AT&T. We're certainly there to work with them. You know, they need an extra month or two, we'll work with them, but we really need them to be taking efforts to get off site. And I know Councilmember Jordan has been pulling whatever levers he can find to try and find them suitable space, whether that's with KEYT, who has a really great location. From my understanding, the Radio Club does have several locations around the area. They just really like this one. I think it's because if they can go there really easily. So this isn't their only site in town. So again, we are trying to work with them. They have been trying to get into the media. They've gotten really good media attention, hopefully trying to, get some grassroots movements, maybe some folks who want to step forward and volunteer their property, or they have some space that they can accommodate them. So anyway, so just want to fill in again. There's been a lot of press on that.
Sorry, before moving on to 7, we need a recommendation for 6B.
It's just an informational item. Yeah, yeah,
No, it's fine. It does say recommendation, but
yeah.
it didn't, I guess,
There's-
my brain saw it and was like, I don't, for what?
Yeah.
And then, sorry.
Okay. Another one I wanted to highlight, there was a LA Times article about, it was an opinion piece, channel keepers, bay keepers, folks that are running with this message that wastewater, treated wastewater, is contributing to ocean acidification and hypoxia. And there is a lot of research going into this right now. They have not finished that research. This is not the conclusion of the scientific community. I think they kind of getting out ahead of the scientific community on this, but we are watching this item very closely. So is CASA, which is the California Association of Sanitary Agencies. So keeping a close eye on that. I just wanted to give you that because there's been some of that discussion out in the community. I do have for you, if you're interested, I can send it out after the meeting, some talking points on ag, the impacts to our ag customers on the water rates. There's been some concerns raised about that, and we value the ag customers we have in town. We do not have a lot of ag customers, typically around 65 ag customers in town. They represent about 1% or less of our water usage, so very small portion, but it's an important part of our community. This Water Commission and Council has always supported our ag customers. They get the cheapest water that the city has. It's even cheaper than recycled water. So a lot has been done here. Having said that, their increases, their rates are going up quite a bit, and I'm not insensitive to that. But at the end of the day, as you're all aware, we have to recover the cost of providing services to that customer class. And so, anyway, I've got some talking points I can share with you on that should you find yourself in conversations with ag, and we really are supporting them. We're not trying to push them out of the community. Our ag rates are less than Montecito's, but more than Carpinteria and Goleta, who sit over larger groundwater basins and have much more of that cheaper water. Their groundwater basins require less treatment than ours, so it kind of equates to that. And then, so more to come on that if questions have come up. So far, we've received 3 protest letters. And we do have our webinar next week, May 21st. So hopefully anybody, 22nd, I just can't get this date right, May 22nd. I think they've told me that before. All right, so May 22nd, if folks are interested in learning more about our rates, we hope they can tune in. Another item that's pun here, and heating up is hot water. The issue of how can we move to, in particular, we're talking about our multifamily dwelling units who are wanting to move to heat pumps, and they want to use centralized heat pumps. How do we balance that with our desire to have individual water metering for those units, and trying to come up with something that works for everybody? My mindset is I'm thinking 30 years out, not thinking what's necessarily the cheapest for the developer, but what ultimately is not only best for the environment, because we look at that water usage has an embedded energy usage as well. So we're working really closely with our Sustainability and Resiliency Department to try and figure out if there is a win that we can come up with to kind of meet both of those needs. Trying to avoid having a cold water meter and a hot water meter is what we're trying to avoid in this situation. Did you have any comments on that?
I was just thinking about like different technologies that might be available to monitor multifamily water use that might try and get, I know with the having sub-metering, it makes it difficult, but if there are like sound-based or other, I know I've seen technologies that are not sub-meters, but still can provide disaggregated use for multifamily, and I was just wondering if, I don't know, that could be something to look into.
Potentially, and the other one that's out there, and it's, I can't say it's a widespread, is where each unit has a tank, and you kind of have this centralized heating unit that, and in each tank, it's kind of like the air conditioning thing, so you can set each room can have its own temperature. This would be the same thing, so each unit could have their own hot water heater, and that tank could be filled with cold water and then heated there, and so you still have one water meter, but they can still take advantage of the efficiency that comes with a centralized heat pump. I don't know how widespread that is, and I don't know much about the cost, but I think this is what we're trying to do, is transition to this new technology, and how can we support that?
And how does ultimately, who gets to decide this? Like, it's just a conversation with the developer? Are there certain requirements around permitting or?
Right now, it's pretty black and white. Each unit needs to be individually metered.
Yeah.
So that's on the books now. It doesn't provide a lot of flexibility, but as we evolve in this area, I imagine us bringing an item to the Water Commission to talk further about this, and also to the Sustainability Committee to talk about more how we kind of meet both of those needs. And of course, support housing. We want to develop affordable housing out there too. How do we meet that need? So land movement, we continue to have 3 land movement situations. The Barker Pass, we have now replaced the water main there. It was not a leaking water main. It was, a springs, basically. There's just so much water coming in there. And the county has been working to try and rebuild that road there and try and build into the road's drainage so that water that is seeping into this road can move through. Las Alturas, you might have seen some press on that. We've now reduced that down to a one-way, or not one-way, it's a single lane, so people have to take turns going through that area. And we are working with a geologist to figure out how we can stabilize that road, and with it, our utilities that go through there. We have put valves in on the water system on both sides of the spill area, so should we see anything weird, we can valve that off. And then we currently have the ability now to pump around the sewage around that area. And so we'll continue to monitor that closely. And then the other one is up on West Mountain. Right now, the water main is not included in that slide yet, but we're watching that closely. Let's see. Elistero Electrical, did I talk to you about where that project is? I'm not. So we went out to bid at the end of last year. We ended up with a bid protest. In particular, in this situation, it had to do with the fact that we saw the project as an electrical replacement, and the union saw it as a new project. Ultimately, it was decided that this is a new project, and so we are now going out to bid because only union shops can go after this project because it's over 5 million. So we are have just qualified bidders, and we're putting out to bid. Probably come back to you August. I might even include it as part of the workshop. I just don't want to hold up this, getting this back out to into construction. Let's see. Climate action plan. So, Councilmember Sneddon is familiar with this. So, climate action plan, this is trying to reduce the community's overall carbon footprint going forward. We have a part in this initial, I think they're going to continue to work on expanding this, but it's really related to water conservation is what our main focus was in this one. There's a lot of things in there they want to accomplish. We don't have the staff to go after some of this, so that's going to be an ongoing conversation. We did identify in there that if the council wants to move forward with this particular climate action plan, that we would probably need to add additional conservation staff to make that happen. And then, not to be confused with the climate change adaptation plan, how could you possibly? And that is looking at specifically our utilities that are impacted by climate change, mainly sea level rise and flooding, and what we are going to do for that. So we're actively working on that. We need to have some type of draft for our NPDES permit, which is due in August. But it can be draft because keep in mind, they're not going to look at our NPDES permit for probably 3 or 4 years. They don't have the staffing to do it. So I think we'll show, I mean, they want to see that we're making progress on this, and I think that's what's key. And we'll be working through that. We will bring something back to you. We've had multiple internal conversations on this, and it's been interesting to talk about just the larger impacts, of providing service to properties that are impacted by climate change. I mean, that's ultimately what makes our job really complicated. So it'll be a healthy conversation with you, and we'll try and figure out how best. It may even be a special meeting, just given the interest this commission has shown in this case, in this situation.
Backtracking to the climate action plan, in terms of looking at how to save both energy and water and emissions, heat pumps and incentives that are directed working with so-called Edison and others that are going in that direction, because that's where we have the most energy for the water use, no? And so that would be useful to see what we can do with respect to that. No?
Yeah, it was really fascinating. I'm trying to remember the numbers on this, but when we look at the energy embedded in water, 2/3 of that energy is associated with hot water. So it just kind of drives home just how much energy goes into the heating process. And that included desal water. Like desal made up 1/3 of the energy related to that water usage. So anyway, I think that's a really good point, and we'll be talking more about that. I think that's a good one to bring back to the commission. Water revenues right now are projected to come in $2 million right now below what we had thought, and we kind of had downgraded them after last year. So it's just another challenge that we're up against. And then Doppler, I've mentioned that all to you. We've been using that to track calls for service, specifically weekends and after hours. And we started using it to help deploy staff. So staff know when they're on call, and they know if they're in the ESW role that night. We are now looking at what we call phase 2 of that, in which we will be doing daytime using Doppler. So what Doppler offers is they have several call centers around the country, and they will be taking our daytime calls. So we'll see. I'm really keen because maintaining trust and high regard with this community is a priority. And so this call center needs to provide the same service that our staff have been providing. They have, in our meetings with them, are using a lot of AI to help. So when someone calls in and says, I have a water leak, their AI software will prompt their live person these are the questions you need to ask to drill down as to where this call may need to go and what specifically we need to capture from that customer. So we'll see how that goes. We will bring back certainly the results of that, but we can bring back more information about this program. But we are eager to see if this will help streamline. What's good about this is this call center is not local, which in a disaster would be good because this call center would not be impacted, so we can continue to get calls. But the type of tracking now that we're getting from them, I mean, we know when they called, who called, and then each time our staff take an action, it gets tracked. So there's a lot of detail in there, pictures and follow-up. And I really appreciate every morning I come in at 6 a.m., it shows who called in overnight, what the issues were. It's really helpful to kind of keep tabs on the community's interactions with us. And of course, that number gets used for all of the city after non-emergency after hours. So we get water mains, but we also get, there's human feces in the parking garage. Like we get all of those calls. So more to come on that.
I have a question on the Doppler P.
Yeah.
Does that connect to SB Connect and like the ability to put work orders in through that?
Love that you brought that up. So right now, I feel like I'm feeding you questions. This is great because they're all you. So one of the things that we're challenged with at SB Connect is it's not monitored 24/7. And what we are hoping with, if this Doppler pilot is successful, is that Doppler can monitor those calls so that now people be in a place where they can actually enter in emergencies through SB Connect, water emergencies through SB Connect. Right now, if you try and do it, it just says, no, you need to call a number. But it would be great if we can capture everything and there was someone monitoring that 24/7. I think that would be good for those who don't like to use the phone, which they're out there. So I know it's a really great question. So it really depends on the success of this pilot. So yeah, we'll see where that goes. And then finally, on a less exciting note, Leah Monaco has let us know that she will be leaving us. And so her last day is tomorrow. And the upside for her is she's getting rid of a commute. So she lives in Oxnard, and so she found a place close by, and she's going to stay in the water world and stay in touch. So we can keep tabs on how she's doing in her career. But yeah, so we'll be working to try and fill that important role. It was fun writing down all the things that she's involved in because she really is behind the scenes doing so much to support our water resources team. And so the list of everything that she gets involved in is pretty significant. So we do appreciate all of her support and her passion for what we do. So thank you, Leah. And with that,
To celebrate Leah, we have some treats on the side, and we also.
okay. Sweet. Thank you. And with that, that concludes my comments.
Great. Did you guys have, okay, fantastic. Let's bring this meeting to a close, and the date of our next scheduled meeting is Thursday, July 18th at 9 a.m.